Peacemaker was a character who had not had a lot of character development over the course of Suicide Squad. He was a reprehensible at the beginning of the movie. He was pretty much a reprehensible at the end of the movie. We spent some time with other characters like Bloodsport or Ratcatcher dealing with, their relationships with their father or with their family, understanding their background, Polka Dot Man with his mother. And so in the scene in the minibus where Ratcatcher and Bloodsport are talking about their respective relationships with their fathers, you cut to Peacemaker and he's got kind of a wry grin on his face, but that's it. I think that wry grin is the genesis of the entire 8 episodes, because we knew there was a lot to tap into, a lot to mine with what created this guy. The idea of, peace at any price, no matter how many men, women, and children I have to kill. What that credo, what is it for? What is that security blanket or crutch for, to give some meaning to some of the terrible decisions he's made in his life? So I think that was part of it. And then the other part is John Cena is just one of the greats. He's a pleasure to work with. He's immensely talented. He's one of the funniest guys I've ever met. But he also has real acting depth that I think people had not been aware of. And I think James wanted to explore that with him. So he was the natural spin-off character. When I went to James and said, if HBO Max would say yes to 8 episodes, who do you want to do? He said, it's Peacemaker. That was it.
You mentioned Peacemaker's dad. Can you talk about the decision to make his dad, it's revealed in the first 3 episodes, which people will be seeing, White Dragon, because that's a pretty loaded character. And so yeah, I'm just curious about the decision to make White Dragon his dad.
Again, it was just something that, James had it in mind right from the get-go, that White Dragon was going to be his dad. When you have somebody as repugnant as Chris Smith is in the Suicide Squad, you really need to create somebody that is even more repugnant and repellent to have a shot at creating some empathy or sympathy for that character. And so I think when people discover what kind of upbringing he had, he's a guy that just wants his dad's approval, just wants an attaboy from his dad, and he gets nothing but, frankly, blame for the death of the father's favorite son. You start to understand where his life view comes from. I thought it was a really bold choice for James to go with such a Archie Bunker on steroids character, but I think it was really essential to have that in order to help explain who Chris Smith is, and also to give him that push and the arc towards who he is by the end of the show. He's suffused with his toxic masculinity in episode 1, but he's really come a long way from that by the end of the show.
The Suicide Squad, despite everyone loving it, didn't perform as well as probably had been hoped. So do you see now HBO Max maybe being a way to carry on some of these characters, like a Harley Quinn or any of the other characters that survived?
I do. I think it's an opportunity. A lot of it comes down to, in fact, it all comes down to the filmmaker. It all comes down. The fact that it was the guy that wrote and directed the movie wants to write and direct the show, that's really compelling. So if there's a filmmaker, whether it's James or somebody else, that has a great idea for, be it Bloodsport or Ratcatcher or anybody else, those are conversations that can be had. But, I think it's not enough just to say, I want to do it with this character. It's about what's the vision for that character? What is the tone or vibe for that particular piece of IP? So listen, I think there's some great characters that we've brought to life in the Suicide Squad, and it would be an incredibly fun opportunity to give them their own life beyond the Suicide Squad. But I think it really it's about coming up with a concept or a construct that really works and takes advantage of those characters.
Now, I know you're not a producer on The Flash, but you are a key architect in the current DC film universe. We obviously know from DC fandom that they're expanding into a multiverse. Marvel is clearly doing a multiverse. Is there any concern about too much multiverse, or is it just the right time for a multiverse?
I don't think there's a real concern. I think the concern is, can you find filmmakers that are inspired enough to create great content? Whether it's film or episodic or multiverse or outside of the universe, whatever it is, to me, it always just comes down to, are you finding the Taika Waititis or the James Gunns or the James Wans or, the David Tennant or the Andy Muschietti's? Andy's, I can't wait to see what he does with The Flash. And I love the concept of that movie as well. So to me, I'm not worried about, are we trying to anchor it too much in a joined universe or in a multiverse? It's really about what is the inspired concept and filmmaker view with each character.
I loved Shazam 1. You've got Shazam Fury of the Gods production. But, Asher's older looking now, so how does the film kind of deal with the fact that he's not really a kid anymore? Does Billy still need this sort of wish fulfillment character or an adult male to like turn into, if you see where I'm going with it?
We very much lean into the idea that, Asher's 17 going on 18. I think the script for Shazam 2 was absolutely fantastic. Henry Gayden and Chris Morgan did an extraordinary job. I am really convinced that this movie is even better. I love the first movie. I really loved it. And I thought that, Sandberg hit that tone just right. It was such a, the eye of the needle was so small to thread. I think the second movie is even better. I love what we've done with it. And I like that the kids are a little bit older so that you can lean into a little more adult humor and also just adult stakes and adult issues that one deals with at 16 and 17 that you don't deal with at 13 and 14. So I think it's got everything that the first movie had, but frankly, bigger action, great antagonists, and Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu. For anybody that liked the first movie, I think they are just going to go bananas for the sequel. I really do. I love everything about it.